Welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr., your go-to wellness coaches of www.stressfreenow.info. Our featured guest today is Sharon Carne, speaking about the role of sound in daily life. Sharon's an author, speaker, musician, recording artist, sound healer, and consultant. She has been a faculty member of the Conservatory at Mount Royal University in Calgary, Alberta, since 1988. Sharon is the founder of Sound Wellness, whose programs are at the forefront of education in how sound and music can be easily applied to your everyday life to reduce stress, help you concentrate, energize you, support your health, and inspire you. Sharon is the author of Listen from the Inside Out, and has produced and recorded several CDs solo and with others.
Hi, Sharon. I want to welcome you back to our show. An audience, you are in for a treat. We have Sharon Carne here from Sound Wellness, and it's going to be an amazing show.
Hi, Sharon. We're glad to have you back on the show. We enjoyed your visit the last time. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. What a wonderful conversation we had last time.
Yes, great. Sharon, as the founder of Sound Wellness, please tell us about the mission of your company and the story behind how you got started. I believe our listeners will be fascinated by that.
Well, the stories I told about the near-death experience and the stage fright and the last conversation we had, that kind of led to me really learning a lot more about what is it about sound that makes it a carrier for thought and what else can it do. So I focused a lot of my own spiritual journey and learning and self-development learning on sound healing and sound therapy. And I guess as I was doing this and following my own interests and passions, I would share it occasionally if I was asked to speak for a group and share some of the things I was learning. And I guess word got around at the university. So I get a call from out of the blue one day from the director of the Integrative Health Institute at Mount Royal University. And she said, "Sharon, I hear you're into sound therapy." And I said, "I guess so," because it's something that has intrigued me, and it's something that I really am excited to learn more about, because things are really clicking for me with studying this field. And she said, "Well, we are sponsoring a study on stress, and we wanted to test sound therapy as one of the interventions. Would you create a program for us for this study and deliver the program to our volunteers?" And I thought, I would love to do that, because I had been collecting years and years and years worth of information that I would love to have the opportunity to put it together and share it with more people. So of course I said yes, and worked with my group in the study for 6 weeks, I think was the time I was allotted. And as I mentioned in the previous interview, everything I do is like an experience with a buffet of different sounds, because the field of sound healing and sound therapy is so enormous. And we all respond to sound in our own unique way. So people had a buffet of a lot of different experiences and how they help support the reduction of stress. So at the end of the last class, the principal investigator was there in my session, and they surrounded both of us with, how do we learn more about this? This was amazing. This was so helpful to me. And I thought, there really aren't a lot of programs in Canada that offer sound like this buffet of experience, so people can put their toe in the water and experience and play with the tools, use their voice, listen to recordings. And so about a month after I completed my part in that study, I created Sound Wellness as a way of bringing this knowledge that I collected to a larger audience, and it has been the most remarkable journey ever since then. That one phone call from out of the blue totally changed my life.
This is incredible. I enjoyed listening to that. it sounds like it sounds like a truly fluid experience, just one thing flowing into the next. Thank you for sharing it. Sharon, you live in just really one of the most lovely places, I think, in the world, and maybe we all think that about where we live, or many of us do. Most of our listening audience is in the United States. Could you give us a little taste of what it's like living in Calgary, and how does it look, and what's it like being in that place?
Well, right now it's delightful. The trees are out in beautiful green, and flowers are blooming, and the lilacs are out, and it's a beautiful city. One of the comments that many people who visit our city say how friendly people in Calgary are, where you can be walking down the street downtown and someone will smile at you. Or people in lineups at the grocery store will stop and chat with each other. Not always, but you'll see it fairly often. So there's a culture of friendliness here. And there's a lot of support for when things happen that are traumatic for large numbers of people in the city. For example, in 2013, we had a major flood. We had a huge amount of water and a major flood, which flooded most of downtown Calgary and a whole lot of other homes and neighborhoods. There were tens of thousands, thousands, I'm not sure about tens of thousands, but possibly tens of thousands of people who had to leave their home, and downtown was shut down for a week until they got the power back on and the water out from all the basements. And there were so many volunteers from the city who wanted to help people whose homes had been flooded and the water had just receded, and they had to take everything out and clean up the mess. And there were so many volunteers, there were tens of thousands, that they had to send them all to the football stadium in order to organize them to go to certain areas where they needed most help. They did that for weeks. And it was quite an amazing experience to see a city that had a major catastrophe and people really come together. I'm just so honored and thrilled to be in such a beautiful place in that way. We're about an hour away from some of the most gorgeous mountains on the planet. And like Denver, we have a similar location on the plains. And then the mountains you can see them to the west, and it's very, very easy and quick to get there. There are 3 major ski hills, world-class ski hills, within about an hour to 2 hours of Calgary. So lots of people do a lot of outdoor activities here too, and skiing is huge. People come from all over the world for the skiing experience in the winter. And then there's Lake Louise in Banff. And Lake Louise is part of a major positive vortex on the planet. Many people are aware of the beautiful energy in some of these what are called positive energy vortexes around Sedona in Arizona. When you're near these places, you just feel so peaceful, so calm, and so wonderful. It's like your heart opens. Lake Louise is like one of those places. It's one of the most beautiful, beautiful places on the planet. And it's also within a very large positive vortex. So tens of thousands of people come all year around just to stand on the shore of that lake and just go, ah.
Bob and I are ready to do that. We're due for a little bit of traveling, and we have so many friends, family, and colleagues across Canada that I think we'll have to agree between ourselves to make a stop there. And I really enjoyed listening to you talk about not just the physical beauty of your environment, but that beauty of community pulling together after a traumatic event. So I appreciate your sharing the story. Now, Sharon, in terms of your sound therapy work, what have fellow music and sound therapists given you in terms of feedback, and how are you received in the therapeutic community of sound professionals?
Well, I think we've developed a pretty good reputation around town here. And there are many music professionals who will come and take our programs, especially and other professionals or practitioners who are working in one aspect of sound and want to learn more about many other aspects of sound. For example, someone who is specializing in Tibetan bowls will take our program because they want to learn more about how to integrate the voice with the bowls, or recordings for their clients in addition to what they're already doing. So we get many people who come to our programs who want to use what they learn to complement what they're already doing. There's also, we've had a number of medical professionals, mostly nurses. Here there are RNs, registered nurse, and licensed professional nurse, who have gone through our programs, and their professional association has helped fund them to attend our programs. So and that's just within Alberta. I don't know if nursing professional associations will support people nurses from other provinces to attend our programs, but they certainly have here in Alberta. So that is wonderful statement of the professional associations supporting the growth of their nurses.
Excellent. I've heard so often how important sound is. If you have someone who's ill, that if they seem as if they're out of it or not alert, that they're picking up the sounds. They're hearing the voices. They're hearing what's happening around them. And we're not always aware of it. We take for granted what is standard in our day. We're aware of what we're seeing, but what we're hearing is playing a big part in our day-to-day and in our health. But I don't think we have the level of awareness of that as we do when we see something, how important what we hear is.
That is so, so true, Christine. Thank you so much for saying that, because sound is a physical energy. In order for sound just to move, it has to push against atoms. And as this energy, sound is defined as vibrational energy. And it's an energy like a knock on the door or something that creates a movement in the atoms of the air that reaches your eardrums. So we are not aware of this. And one thing that many people are not aware of is that sound creates the same movement through your entire being. It's a physical energy that travels through you. And it pushes against all of your atoms and molecules, sending them into a state of vibration. And there's one thing I love to compare with that people really, really brings home and makes sense, is that we all know that there's good food, there's junk food, and there's superfood. Well, it's the same thing with sound. We have good sound, which is like wind and water and bird song. Those are some of the healthiest sounds that there are for the human being. And then there's junk sound, like traffic noise and a jackhammer and the music that's too loud in the grocery store that makes you turn around and leave. Then there's also super sound, which is the kind of sound that feeds your entire being, that turns on all kinds of one example I guess I can give of super sound is the Overtone Chanting. And I had the most interesting experience of this in one of our live events here in Calgary. I was demonstrating Overtone Chanting, and this woman in the back row all of a sudden got really excited, and she said, "Do I have your permission to share this?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, since I've been a little girl, I've had the ability to see auras and see the field around the human body. And she said, as soon as you started making those sounds, your field lit up like a light bulb. I have never seen a human field so bright. And then I explained that the Overtone Chanting, it turns on the luminescent cells that we have in the sight and in the pineal gland. We have luminescent cells like a firefly. We're human fireflies. And there are certain kinds of sounds that turn this on, and one of them is the overtone chanting. So she saw that, which was I was very grateful for her sharing that experience of a super sound.
Yeah, great, Sharon. I tell you, it's just you are opening so many doors here and mentioning that sound is really vibration. So on that note, I want to kick it up a notch, as Emerald might say, because what you've done is, as I was listening to your voice, you reminded me that one of my freshman college roommates was from Alberta and actually from Edmonton, and so I hadn't really thought about that in a long time. As I was listening to your voice, I said, oh, she's really Canadian. I love the Canadian sound, and so I was listening to your sound and remembering, and so that's the part of the thing with sound and music, when we have pleasant experiences, that it brings back positive memories. So I want to thank you for that. And then I want to move on to this area. Sharon, on your website, you sell an amazing array of products ranging from giving feng shui advice to the crystal bowls, etc. But now I want to talk tuning forks. Now you're in my ballpark, because we sell tuning forks that spike nitric oxide. So I am looking to have some fun here for our audience, because you sell tuning forks and you sell both kinesthetic tuning forks, the Auto 128, as well as the auditory tuning fork. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with tuning forks, what and how you've used them with clients, also during your presentations, and whether or not you use them for yourself to reduce your own stress?
Oh, yes. The tuning forks are spectacular tools, and I love so much, especially the ones you're referring to are the ones that were developed by Dr. John Ballou, and the studies that he and Dr. George Stefano did on these forks were profound in helping me understand that deep level of cellular response that these forks can stimulate. And I get a lot of emails and stories from people who have experienced the forks, and they bring tears to my eyes. And there's one I wanted to share with everyone, but I also wanted to say, Bob, that I use mine almost every day. Whether for me, the 128 hertz fork is probably my favorite at the moment. About a year and a half ago, we came to the end, Ed and I, of an 8-year journey of supporting 3 very close family members in end of life experience.
Oh my!
Both of my husband's parents, one after the other. His mom had a major stroke and ended up having to live in a facility, a nursing home. And then we drove his dad there every single day, back and forth, and would visit with Mom. And that was for 2 years we did that. And then Dad was in his late 80s. They were both in their late 80s. And we cared for Dad, who developed dementia, which was not quite Alzheimer's. He knew who we were, but he was losing his short-term memory and his long-term memory. So we kept him in his apartment, which was only a 5-minute drive from us, as long as we could. He had all his meals at our place so that we knew he was remembering to eat. And then he passed away gently from that after several years of us helping him. And then my sister had terminal cancer. So one after the other, we had a journey with end-of-life care. And because family is one of our highest values for Ed and I, we chose to help with the major care for these 3 people. And that meant stepping into some serious stress. So as far as the answer to do I use the sound tools, oh my goodness, yes. There are times with my sister especially, for me, where there were a lot of emotional things that came up throughout that journey. And I have a very large Tibetan bowl that's about a 1.5 feet across, And I would it's very heavy, and I would put that bowl in my lap, and I would get a gong mallet and tap the daylights out of it. So I would get wave after wave after wave after wave of this huge sound wave going through me to loosen up so much of that emotional energy and just let it go. The tuning forks I found so helpful for the tight muscles that are resulting from stress, because many of us, as the stress hormones are elevated, then our muscles get tight because we're always in that fight or flight response, and your muscles don't really get a chance to release very much. And when you're always focused on care of somebody else, then I had a lot of tightness in my lower back, especially my shoulders. I tend to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders, so that's where I use the 128 hertz fork all the time. So that has been a lifesaver for both Ed and I. These tuning forks in particular have been so incredibly helpful for reducing that stress response, is when you stimulate that nitric oxide response and bring that into harmony, then your body comes into a little healthier state.
Well, I have to tell you, Sharon, the fact that you sell tuning forks and are familiar with them, because not everyone is familiar with them, and the fact that you are familiar with Dr. John Bilal, and then you also mentioned Dr. George Stefano. So for the audience, that is very special for me, because John Bilal is one of my mentor friends, and in fact we saw both him and his wife Thea, and he actually is the person who's responsible for me going on my own personal journey, my own nitric oxide flatlining and spiking journey, when I met them back in 2009 in San Francisco at a workshop. And so that was a bifurcating moment that changed my life. And interestingly enough, when you mentioned Dr. George Stefano, although I have never met him, he was the head of the SUNY Old Westbury neuroscientific operation out there, and it just happens that I'm very familiar with SUNY Old Westbury. So the amount of synchronicities involved here are pretty tremendous. So I want to thank you for sharing such a personal story, talking about the end-of-life care of your mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister, and how you use the tuning forks and the other tools to both you and your husband to help soothe the transition for yourselves, in addition to the health as caregivers, because as we all know, especially with the baby boomers generation, elder care and stress burnout from elder care of the caregiver is a serious issue. In fact, sometimes the caregiver ends up passing away before the person that they're caring for. We've seen that in our family, and I've seen that actually on my block here where I live, that the person that had the stroke that was being cared for, they're still here, and the person caring for them, they burned out. And so this is very serious business. So, audience, I want to let you know that we were going for a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with our featured guest today, Sharon Carne from Sound Wellness.
Have you been procrastinating about completing an important project or following a treasured dream? Hi, this is Christine Wright. I specialize in helping my coaching clients to lay out clear, goal-achieving strategies. I show you how to quickly build your confidence and uncover and eliminate your habitual patterns of resistance and self-sabotage. Let me help you discover those meaningful insights that will get you to do what works so you can celebrate your successes. Go to stressfreenow.info/contact to let me know that you're curious about how to live your ideal life now. Again, that's stressfreenow.info/contact. Are you dealing with stress, burnout, chronic pain, anxiety, or unresolved grief? Dr. Robert Wright, Jr., the Stress Relief Doctor, is an author, speaker, and stress management wellness coach. Co-host of the Learn to Live Stress-Free podcast series, Dr. Bob holds a Ph.D. in Transformative Studies and a master's degree in psychology. He is the author of the first published study to show the connection between stress reduction, grief recovery, and nitric oxide spiking and the relaxation response. He has a wealth of practical knowledge which helps you to relieve the stresses of everyday life so you can live longer and play with your grandchildren. Work with Dr. Bob and he'll give you the tools you need to dissolve your pain points quickly and effectively. Email him to find out how you can start to feel better at stressfreenow.info/contact. That's stressfreenow.info/contact.
Hi, this is Dr. Bob, the Stress Relief Doctor. We're back with our featured guest today, Sharon Carne from Sound Wellness. Sharon, on your website, you sell an amazing product. Well, you have many amazing products, but one of the products that I think our audience will benefit from hearing more about is this thing called Song Pods. I've never seen them before. On your website, you describe them as a unique handheld, self-playing musical instrument. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Can you talk about the benefits for people of using the Song Pods, and specifically about the healing benefits and the calming benefits that their music generates when you hold them in the palm of your hand?
Oh, these Song Pods are quite amazing, Bob, and I found them many, many years ago when I was looking for a very high vibrational sound for one of my recordings that would really be a sound way of creating light in that sound. And when I first saw the Song Pod, I went, that is it, and purchased my first Song Pod. And then as I learned how to use it and was using it in our programs, then we started carrying them on our site when we could get them. There's one person in the world who makes them. And so that's probably why you haven't heard of them. They kind of find their way around through synchronicity. A Song Pod, it's almost like an egg shaker that you hear sometimes in jazz recordings, the or maraca, a very soft maraca, the kind of sound. Only that's not the sound it makes. It makes a very high, tinkly, resonant sound that just makes you want to smile. I don't think I've ever seen anybody who's tinkled these little Song Pods by their ears who didn't smile. It's almost like having an angel whisper in your ears. It's that kind of experience. Inside the Song Pods, the person who invented them says there's usually a Herkimer crystal, which is a very small, special kind of quartz crystal that is found in Herkimer, New York. And then there might be ash from a volcano. There might be sand from the ocean or the river. There might be dust from a meteorite. There might be beads from her great-great-grandmother's shawl. They're not a traditional North American native tool, although they're made by a native woman in the United States. And they're welded, all of these things are welded together inside a stainless steel case, and then she decorates it. It fits in the palm of your hand just like an egg. It's probably a little bit bigger than a large egg, probably an extra large or an extra, extra large egg that fits in the palm of your hand. They're guaranteed for 3 lifetimes. You can't break them, and they just have the most amazing sound. It's I sprinkle the sound at times because you can shake it like a salt shaker, and like you shake salt onto your food. And when you shake it, it has a slightly different kind of sound than just gently turning it. And shaking it, it's like it gives bursts of sound that will clear things. When Ed and I are out in a public event with a lot of singing bowls, I have my 2 Song Pods there, and we shake them over the bowls to clear them of any energy that people might have left as they played them. I use them for bringing light into a space. If I walk into a space and it feels a little bit heavy, then I'll shake the Song Pods around in the space. Our dog, when she was still with us, she had very bad arthritis in her back hips, And she would never let me use Reiki on her, but she would let me sprinkle the song pod sound on her hips. And she would get up and walk around, and it helped her, it eased her arthritis. You can sprinkle the sound. If you have 2 song pods, or if you have one, you can tap it or hit it on a hard surface, as long as you don't dent the table, or clap them together, and they have a completely different sound there. And sometimes I feel if there's a heavy energy, or people who have bought them from us and are using them in massage, for example, in a massage session, a massage therapist can use some of these sounds to help dislodge some of that emotional energy that comes up in the muscles as they're being massaged. Often this emotional energy is what's keeping the muscle tight. So
I have to tell you, Sharon, I know I'm just going, wow. I mean, people in our audience must be going, wow. And I hope you end up getting lots of hits on your website just so people, song pods. That sounds so amazing, and thank you for sharing that.
Well, Bob, I just wanted to mention, too, because the exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the United States dollar is really, our dollar is really devalued, so we don't have any of them in stock. And if any of your listeners are interested, go to the website in the United States, because people can purchase them there, too. It's songpods, with an S at the end, .com.
Okay, great. Thanks for that piece of information, Sharon. And I especially like that you said it has a 3 lifetime guarantee. That's incredible.
You have to put them in your will. Mm-hmm.
I just want to agree with Bob even more. The wealth of information that this aspect of sound that is so integral in our lives, who would know, listening to you, listening to what you're sharing with us, just how important a role this is. I come back to it. You were talking about using the bowls for yourself and for Ed, and healing yourselves and helping yourselves. There's so many resources out there available to people, but we're not aware of it. So I'm so glad that Bob and I have the opportunity in this platform to bring you to our audience so that they're aware that there's a solution for something. There's help out there. There's sound wellness out there. So I'm just really, really excited. It seems so simple. And when you talk about the sounds in nature, those sounds that revitalize us, but we're so accustomed to that we think that, traffic and horns and jackhammers, that's all there is to sound. And our conversation brought to mind Karen Kingston, I believe it's her book, Feng Shui, and she talks about sound healing, just to have the sort of cleansing, clearing sound going through your home. Now, when you talk about you sell both the quartz crystal bowls and the Tibetan singing bowls. What's the difference between these two? How do you use them?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, Christine. And the singing bowls are remarkable tools, too. And there's different kinds of Tibetan singing bowls. Some of them are the really old ones that were handmade. And they're usually bumpy on the outside, so when you run your hand along the outside, you can feel where the hammer had been striking the bowl to shape the bowl. And those are quite different from some of the more modern machine-made bowls. The ones that are machine-made usually have a purer sound. They have one fundamental frequency and then usually an overtone. There's sometimes painting, or Om Mani Padme Hum might be painted on the outside of the bowl, and many of them have carvings on the inside of Buddha or sacred things. So those bowls have their own special sacred uses and special energy. Now, in the old bowls, when these were made hundreds or thousands of years ago, they would take 7 main metals and then lay them out, heat them together, lay them out, cool them, and hammer them into a bowl shape. And it's said that every single hammer stroke in creating a Tibetan singing bowl had to be accompanied by a prayer or an om or a mantra. So as they're being made, then this energy, this sacred energy, is planted into the metal of the bowl. So they have a very different feel from the machine-made bowls. Now, I'll refer to, when I talk about the difference between the crystal and the Tibetan bowls, I refer to these handmade bowls. When you tap them with a gong mallet, then something like that, then you hear a whole lot of different frequencies and wavering sounds, and at a lot of different levels. So there's some really low ones and really high waverings. And all of these waverings feel to me like a shower of sound. Remember, sound is a vibrational energy that creates a movement in your atoms and molecules. And as you're holding one of these old bowls, it's like it creates that movement of prayer and mantra and Om throughout your entire being that in a way allows your being to reset. And it's almost like the restart button on the computer. You know, when the computer's just not working, you have to turn the darn thing off and turn it on again. So the Tibetan bowl to me is kind of like that. It's like it sends such a wave upon wave upon wave of vibration through your entire being that kind of upsets all the stuff that has been bothering you, and it allows your body to reset to its own natural harmonic frequencies. Now, whether or not we put the illness back in, and many of us have ongoing things that are going on, of course, so it still allows you to reset and help the body remember this is your natural state. Crystal bowls, to me, they're more like a laser, where the clear quartz singing bowls are similar to the Tibetans, where they often will have one fundamental frequency and then an overtone when you play them. And then the frosted classic bowls, which are kind of opaque and white in color, then they usually just have one sound. And this sound sends a wave through the body at a very specific frequency that will create a movement in those atoms and molecules upon which your intention is carried. So that's one of the differences with quartz, and this goes into the science of what quartz is. It's an amplifier for your thoughts. So if I play a singing bowl that I want to use to reduce a pain in my stomach, then I play the bowl and I hold the intention of reducing the pain in my stomach, and that sound amplifies and creates that effect, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
I think even people who've heard about the singing bowls, there often is little discussion of the why it works and how it works. And so I know there are many people who will be listening who will really appreciate what you've brought to the table here, Sharon, especially explaining the distinction between the two bowls. I just want to move back to our discussion of tuning forks briefly, because you sell both types of tuning forks, the Auto 128 and then the auditory tuning fork that will give the perfect fifth. We use from time to time, the C and G tuning forks, hitting those two together. Can you explain two things to our audience? One, we often throw around terms that are familiar to us, but it's not familiar to everyone. So, for example, the term overtone, you're a professional musician. Someone who's not a musician, they may not know what an overtone is, or even if they do, they can't define it. So I'd like you to define for our audience in simple terms what an overtone is, and then also explain from your perspective what the difference is between using the kinesthetic tuning fork like the Auto 128 and the auditory tuning fork that would generate the perfect fit.
Oh, great questions. The overtone is kind of it's a little bit challenging to describe, but if I say people have been listening to my voice and your voice, Bob, and to Christine's voice, and they all sound different. Now, if you record my voice and your voice and Christine's voice and put it into the computer and do a computer analysis of it, you'll find, and this would show many peaks at many different frequencies, because our voice isn't just one particular frequency or sound. And by one particular frequency, I mean something like, oh, that's as close as I can get to one sound, creating one sound with my voice. Our voices are different from each other because of all of those. There's a main sound which is different. Yours is lower, and Christine's and mine are more similar, but they're not the same as far as how high they sound or how low they sound. One of the main sound of your voice is called a fundamental. And if you take out all of the other sounds that follow mathematical formulas in the sounds in your voice, if you take all of those out, when you get them in the computer, you get the same sound of everybody. Everything sounds the same, whether it's your voice or mine or Christine's or a dog or a violin, they all sound the same. What makes every sound different is that combination of what I call the fundamental sound, which is the loudest sound you hear, like the oh, that's the main sound you hear. But on top of that are other sounds which are called harmonics or overtones. It follows what's called the harmonic series. And the harmonic series follows very strict mathematical, I don't know if you call it mathematical principles, I guess you could call it. And then all of our voices have different sets of those harmonic series. And so the fundamental is the main sound. The overtones are the next loudest ones in that series of sounds. And I don't know if this is making any sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but I could try to demonstrate it. If that
it makes a lot of sense. I understand.
And I'd like the demonstration.
And it is mathematical, but more important, yes, please demonstrate.
Okay. And I have no idea if this will work, but what I like to do to demonstrate is I'll just sing an ah, and then in order to hear the overtone, then I use my throat to muffle that main sound so that you can hear the higher sound, which is the overtone. So I have no idea if this will work, so let's give it a try. Okay.
Wow.
Can you hear the higher sound?
Could you do it again? I actually felt that in my sacral area. That was good for
I think that's how
back.
we should do the entire show. I think we need to redo the entire show.
Could you, Sharon, seriously, I actually felt that in my ilium and sacral, where I have like a little bit of dull back pain. So I'm sure anybody that has like maybe a back pain, they're feeling great. Could you do that one more time for our benefit?
One of the things about singing or chanting overtones like this is, to me, they are the most powerful sound the human voice can make, and the most sacred. So it's such a beautiful sound. Anyway, I'll do it again.
Sharon, I am ready to come to Canada.
I think this is proof that Bob is high auditory, which I think is why he enjoys the sound work so much. Thank you.
Sharon, you also you spiked my nasal nitric oxide. I actually feel my sinuses feel better too. So, so 14% of Americans have some type of serious sinus issue. So it's wonderful. And so I assume that you're familiar with this research. There have been several recent studies that show that humming, simple humming, even humming your favorite tune, spikes nasal nitric oxide by 1,500%. And I always, when I say that, I say to people, what percent interest are you getting in your bank account? I said, if you got 15%, you'd be happy. If you got 150%, you'd be walking on the ceiling. So 1,500%, right? So spiking the nitric oxide just by humming or making that sound vibration, and you can just put your finger on the bridge of your nose. You can feel it when you hum, right?
Oh, my, yes. And when you're doing it, one of the methods in creating the overtones is to use the sinuses, so it does the same thing. And spectacular research, yes. I share the humming, some of the humming research that I've found once a year during allergy season.
Very timely, yes, very timely, because so many people suffer with that.
Yes, so so Sharon, thank you so much for your interview today. And as I said, I don't know, I in one way I feel like we've been on The Price is Right, because you keep, is it door number 1, door number 2, how many doors have you opened? And here, I am so happy that I asked you the overtone question, because this is something that about the music and sound healing is that you can feel it. And so it requires no explanation. It's like when a person asked me one time, they said, how would I know when I'm in love? I said, oh, it's obvious you've never been in love, because you would know, you feel it. So thank you so much for being our featured guest today, Sharon.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Bob and Christine.
Thank you. And Sharon, would you let our audience know how they can get in touch with you? I mean, Bob is ready to sign up and work with you. What's the best way for our listeners to contact you and learn more about what you're doing and to just see your products up close?
You can go to our website, Christine. It's soundwellness.com. And I mentioned a little bit earlier about the wind, the water, and the bird song. When I found out that they were the 3 healthiest sounds that there were, I created my own CD of woodland, birds, and water. And that 60-minute CD is a gift for anyone who wants to sign up for our email list. That is on the main page of the website. So it's a way of bringing some healthy sound into anyone's life. Whether or not you choose to stay on the list or not is up to you, but you still receive that as a gift.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. How very generous. So listeners, please check out soundwellness.com, and you'll be able to learn more about Sharon and the work that she does with sound healing, and you'll be able to get her gift CD should you sign up for her mailing list. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Christine.
Wonderful. Sharon, what final thoughts or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's broadcast?
Well, I guess it would be to hang out in those open doors and increase your awareness. And it's similar to the last interview too, Bob, is that awareness, always. Be aware of sound. We ignore so much of it.
Thank you for that, Sharon. So, audience, I want to thank you again for listening, and I want to thank Sharon so very much for being our featured guest today. We've been having a wonderful time with Sharon Carne, who came all the way from from Calgary, Canada, and in Alberta. And listeners, so wherever you are in whatever time zone you're in right now, I want you to know we so much appreciate your presence and trust that you have benefited in some way from the information we've delivered to you on today's show. We'd welcome and we so much look forward to receiving your comments about our podcast show. Please let us know if there are any additional topics you'd like us to cover, or if there is a special guest whom you enjoyed you'd like us to invite back. Please contact us through our website with your feedback and your suggestions. Remember, listeners, if you'd like to get the same benefits and experience the same benefits our coaching clients get with us, including learning how you can get more results in your day and easy ways to dissolve your chronic pain, stress, anxiety, and grief, then give us a call at 954-900-2179, or you can email me directly at dr.bob@stressfreenow.info. That's dr.bob@stressfreenow.info. Mention that you heard our Stress Free Now podcast show, and you'll receive a free gift from us. Call or email us today to schedule your appointment. For Christine Wright, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr. of www.stressfreenow.info. Until next time, be safe and be well.